What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the ILLMented Reviews. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. All right, ILLMented Reviews, episode 12, coming at you live, and we've got a very, very interesting one from Blue Underground. And it is a film I've actually never seen before. I've obviously known about this for absolutely ever. I'm a big fan of the writer, Henry Miller, who most famously wrote Tropic Cancer, which I've actually read before. I've never seen that adaptation, though, which is odd. And this one right here, I've now seen the film, but I've never read the actual book. But I know this one has been available for a long time. Blue Underground put out a DVD and a Blu-ray years ago. I think it was released uncut actually in the UK by Arrow in the early 2000s also. And we are talking about Quiet Days in Clichy. This is the 4K release of Quiet Days in Clichy. It's the craziest thing that we can get 4Ks of movies like this in today's world. It's absolutely insane. But of course, written by Henry Miller, the very controversial director. I think the book was written in the mid-50s, something like that, adapted in 1970. Along with, actually, Tropic Cancer was actually adapted in 1970 also, which was written in the 30s. So he had two adaptations that were adapted, two movies that were adapted of his work in the same year. I believe that Henry Miller, actually, rumor has it that he even stopped by the sets while they were filming these and stuff like that. This is a film from Denmark, so it's directed by a Danish director, Jean-Jørgen Thorsen. Not 100% sure. It is in English. It does have some French and also Danish languages in it also, but it's mostly in English, so... getting into the synopsis of this, basically this one follows our two main characters, Joey and Carl. They are struggling writers. No surprise that Henry Miller would be writing a story like that. The thing is with Joey and Carl, these guys are kind of your different breed of writers. They're very, very broke, and they'll do anything to get pussy. Basically, this is what they do. They write, they go out into the city, and they just hook up with women. That's all they do. The thing is with Carl, like, he's kind of a pervert. He likes younger girls, older girls, and that's the thing with both of them, is that they don't really care what they're doing, who they're doing. They have no respect for women. It's just wild parties, orgies, and just being very, very rude. That's essentially what the premise of the film is. Now, my thoughts on Quiet Days in Clichy. Now, the movie is shot in Paris. It takes place pretty much all in France. I know they have parts in, like, Frankfurt and stuff like that. These are, like, it is so crazy. I could see how people would be so offended by this. In fact, like, when this movie came out, it was pretty much banned. It was banned by the American government. They seized up all the prints and stuff like that in 1970 because it's just for sexual content. This movie has tons and tons of sexual content. It's basically softcore porn, essentially. Like, there's tons of frontal nudity. There's penis in here, but it's just repetitive. It's so much sex and obscene language. Like, the word cunt is used so much, and if you're familiar with Henry Miller's work, that's nothing new. That's nothing new to you, but it's used a lot to describe women. Like, there's parts in this where, women's brains are just, they're in their cunt, and it's really vulgar. It's super, super vulgar. Even for this time where everything was a little bit more loose in reality and stuff, it still managed to get itself banned. This is the type of movie you probably could never do today, based on the the obscene levels of sex and language and just the absurdity of these characters. They're practically nihilists to the fullest. They don't care about fucking nothing except for just getting pussy, and they treat women like absolute shit. It's insane. I could see how people would be super offended by this today, even more or less back in those days, because everyone gets offended about everything these days. It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, it's very funny to watch because it's so blunt in its approach. Like, it's one of the most obnoxious movies without being overly obnoxious, if that makes any sense. Like, they're kind of calm dudes, but they're constantly doing the most absurd shit. Like, and the thing that blows my mind about this movie is that these characters are so despicable, they're so rotten, and they manage to get laid constantly wherever they go. Like, they have no money. They'll even spend their last dollars on... There's this great scene in the film where Joey basically gives this girl everything he has. He has like a few francs left, and she asked for some money, so he basically just paid for pussy. And she leaves, and they have this montage of her like out having, fine wine and dinner and stuff like that, and he's at his house eating food out of the garbage and shit. It's just, but he doesn't really care. He's like, I just want to get more pussy kind of thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. One thing about the movie I do like is that it's kind of narrated through passages and quotes from Henry Miller's book, which is really funny too, because those are direct quotes from the book, and it's just so filthy. It's just like cunt this and cunt that. Like, it's just ridiculous, man. It's got a very strange structure to the film. It really does. It's shot in black and white, which I like. And it's basically just a montage. The whole movie just feels like it's the same thing being repeated over and over again. It's like these characters talking about pussy, getting pussy, and then having these wild orgies, and then introducing all these type of characters throughout the film. Like, there's this one character who freaks out. She doesn't like to fuck, but she likes to freak out and throw shit. And then Carl introduces this like young girl, 14. They talk. She's like, well, he says that she's, or she says that she's 17. It's fine, blah blah blah. And they got this like weird kind of narrative going with all these type of characters. Every character in this movie feels like a cartoon character. That's the funny thing about this movie. It's definitely got comedic elements to it, and it's got shock value. It's so odd, and then mixed in with this like kind of really good jazz soundtrack and the funniest shit ever by Country Joe McDonald. The theme song for the movie is the funniest song ever. I know he got in a lot of shit for this because the lyrics are just so blunt and absolutely fucking hilarious. It's such a funny song. I can't believe I'd never heard this thing before, but it really does describe the movie to a T, because it's so blunt and it's just so filthy. And it's kind of funny to hear a country song like that from 1970 with that much language, abrasive language in it and stuff. But it's just like, there's a scene in the film where where Joey's having an orgy in the bathtub with these girls, and they're like pouring wine everywhere, and they've got all this disgusting fucking baguette bread in the tub. It's all gross and stuff, and they're all doing all these filthy shits and stuff. And then he decides to piss in the tub, and the girls freak out. They're like, "Oh, that's too much. You've gone too far." It's so ridiculous, man. It's so ridiculous, but it's kind of funny when you watch a movie like this, because there's really no hardcore progressive narrative to this. It's literally one note. It's one note. It's these two despicable humans that are just getting pussy and don't give a fuck about anything else. Literally. It's like they don't even care about doing their writings either. Like, there is moments in the film where they are writing, and it's obviously passages from Henry Miller's book, I'm assuming. And which is kind of cool. I like hearing those, and but it really, it's so sex driven. It's so sex driven. And I'm not sure, like I said, I haven't read the book, so I'm not sure if that's exactly what the whole book is really about, or if that's just how the adaptation came about. I know this movie was actually adapted again in 1990 by Claude Chabrol, the French director, who I actually covered. I did the Arrow box set a while back. And that guy's a great director. I'd like to see his adaptation of it, because his movies are nothing like Henry Miller's material. So I'd like to really see what he did with his adaptation of this. But this is definitely a movie that's not going to be for everybody. I've actually talked to people recently that watched it for the first time that were, huge movie lovers, like this type of stuff, that were not into this at all. I can totally see that. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't love it. I thought it was very comical. There's definitely the type of dark humor in there that makes me laugh, but I think it was more about the abrasiveness and just the absolute absurd situations that these people are put in. It's so cartoonish. It's so out there. It's like, if this is what Henry Miller's vision, or the story's vision was, this is insane. Like, it's absolutely insane, but I keep thinking about the theme song. It's so funny. But yeah, so I will say the 4K transfer, the blue underground 4K transfer on this is fantastic. It really does look good. It's got a bunch of features. It has some deleted scenes on the disc 1, the trailer. Disc 2 which is the Blu-ray, which has most of the features on this. It's got the songs from Clichy, with interview with Country Joe McDonald. It's got the Dirty Books, Dirty Movies, Henry Miller interview with the editor. It's got some new deleted scenes, theatricals and stuff like that. Midnight Blue interview with Barney Rossett. So it's got a fair amount of features on here and stuff. Yeah, if you are a fan of Henry Miller, I would maybe suggest checking it out, especially if you've read the book. It's always nice to see an adaptation of a book that you've read before and stuff like that. I always say that mostly adaptations are never as good as the books, but I can't say for this one. And like Tropic Cancer, I love that book. I should actually brought it out, but I love that book, but I need to see the adaptation that actually happened in the same year. So But Quiet Days and Clichy, man, it is definitely an acquired taste, for damn sure. Like, it's got a weird palette to the film. It really does. Like, the whole visuals of it too, and like it's kind of quirky in itself, where they even have almost like, you know, they even have the passages like titles come up on the screen and too, as they're kind of as the narrative's going on, like you'll have the words come up on the screen and stuff like that, along with just pure narration and stuff. So that's kind of a quirky way of doing it. And it's not straight up, it's like on angles, and they kind of do that. It kind of describes things as things are happening and shit, but it's very comic booky. It's an interesting watch. I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Not my favorite thing in the world. It's something that I actually would watch again, oddly enough, but it's, you know, if you're not into just complete ridiculousness, that's all I can say. It is ridiculous to the fullest in all sensibility. All sensibility has gone out the frame in this one, and it's these two characters that just don't live in the same world as we do. Just put it that way. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Quiet Days and Clichy, 6 out of 10. Great transfer from Blue Underground. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it here for episode 12 on the ILLMented reviews. Yeah, I'll check you guys next time. All right. Deuces.